So in this video, we're going to look at creating a water material inside of Unreal. Now, again, this is probably something it's worth actually experimenting with and trying. It does look complicated, but I'll walk through every step of the way and explain what each bit area does. So we'll get started with that now. Let me just grab a new material, and I'm going to call this water new _m. And then let's grab that over here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the color. So again, what we're going to do is hold 3 on the keyboard, create a 3 vector constant. We're going to need 2 of those. And then I'm going to right click, convert to parameter. Same with this. And then I'm going to call this water dark. And then I'm going to call this water light. We're also then going to plug this into a multiply. So let's drag that into the multiply. And then I'm going to create a scalar. I'm going to call this water scattering amount. And what this does is it allows us to change the depth value between these two colors. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go 0.25, and then we're going to go press D and create a divide. And then we're just going to plug that into there, and we're going to divide this by 1,000. Okay. Then plug it into the multiply, and we're going to search for a single layer water material output. I'm going to click here, and then we're just going to change the hue shift on here. So this is another function which comes with Unreal, and I'm going to change this, and I'm actually just going to put a constant in here, so I don't need a scalar for this. This can be just stay the same. It's going to be set to 0.5, and then the texture is going to be coming out of this water light. Again, we're going to go into a divide, and we're going to divide that by 1,000. And then this, actually, no, ignore me, that's wrong. So we're going to actually put this into multiply, and then what we're going to do is do a water absorption. So again, it's a 1 vector constant as a parameter. So right click, convert to parameter, and water absorption. And again, this is going to help with depth and getting that difference between the two colors, the light and the dark. I'm going to plug that into multiply. Sorry, I'm going to change the parameter on this. I'm going to plug this into a divide again, because we're going to divide it by 1,000, and I'm going to change this number to 5. So we're going to divide that by 1,000, and then that's going to plug into the multiplier, and then this is going to go into here as well. So we've got the scattering, and we got the absorption. That's it for now for the actual colors. So I'm just going to call this color, so we understand where it is. Again, always use comments to help with this. And I'm just going to change the default value to a light blue, and then a darker blue, and we can play around with these later on. But yeah. So that's that. Now, what we're going to do is also change, make these parameters here. So we're going to create a opacity and a roughness scalar, because we need to change these values on the fly, and that's going to plug into a roughness. And then this is going to plug into the opacity, but which isn't highlighted at the moment. So we do need to make some changes to the base material to do that. So if we click anywhere empty here, it will bring up the material definitions and the details. So we do need to change this to, we need to keep this as surface, blend mode opaque, and we're going to change this to single layer water. As you can see, we get the colors from above, and we get the opacity as well, and we keep those set to 0 and 0. I think other than that, the other things left to do, I don't think we need to do anything on here. Nope. I think that's all good for now, and we might need to come back and have a look at that to make sure. But yeah, so we've got the color. The next thing what we're going to do is actually make the ripples. What we need to do is we need to create the ripples effect. So first we need to get absolute world position. Let me just double check what that's. Okay, easiest way is this. Why aren't you working? World position. It is very context sensitive. And we're going to change the water scale. Now, we need to make this as a scalar parameter. So water scale. I'm going to set this default value to 3000. We can play around with this once we make a material instance of it. And then we're going to divide X and Y with this. So divide, so we're going to take that value and divide it by X and Y in the absolute world position. So when it's in the scene, it'll scale properly. We could use a texture coordinate for this, but like I said, we want the position of we want the size and position of the plane where the material is applied to, feeding back into the material so that it scales correctly. Once we're happy with that, we can then go and add a panner, and then what we can do is water. Oh no, I keep saying water, but I need a parameter 2D, and going to say water ripple texture, and we're just going to look for one of these textures in here. So there is actually a texture called water normal, and you can use that if you want, or you can make your own. It's entirely up to you on that one. And then we're going to plug that into there. And what I'm going to do is I need to basically tell it what speed to use. Now I could use it as default, but I want that to be changeable. So depending on the water. So I'm going to add two parameters, one vector, and I'm going to call this speed 1y. I'm going to call this speed 1x. And I'm going to append these two values together, and then I'm going to click the speed, and I'm going to put this quite slow because you don't want it moving too much, especially if it's interior water as well. And the reason why we've put these as scalars parameters is that we can change these on the fly depending on the water that we're using. So once that's happy, we've got that, I can then move that over to slightly, and we can start to look at doing the next one. So we tend to have two ripple effects, one going one way, one going the other. So what we need to do now is to do that. So like, I'm going to take this divide, add a multiply, and then again, I'm just going to copy this and plug it into the coordinates. And then what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to copy this. Oh, hang on. Let me fix that. That would be X. I'm just going to copy these. Now remember, you need to rename them differently. So this time, this is going to be 2, and the same here too. Now, if we don't rename them, it is going to cause an issue where it'll overwrite each other, and that's not what we want. So this time, I'm going to put minus 0.01, and then I'm going to do minus 0.005 because we're going in the opposite direction. Again, I'm going to make an append. No, that's an add. Don't do that. Append, and it's always in the maths appenders. So append, add, subtract, multiply are all in the math nodes. And then again, I'm going to do the same here. Connect it to the multiply. No, I'm not. I'm going to connect it to here. And I'm also going to multiply by a value. So you can actually multiply by a value. You don't have to multiply by a constant. You can also multiply by a value within this box. And then that's connected to the UVs. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to again blend these two normal maps together by using a blend angle corrected normals, an addition there. And then we've got the first call. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create another one of these, which basically this one is this is going to tile again on itself. It's going to add a bit more variation within the thingy. So if I copy this, and I'm going to change this to be different name, so I'm just going to add for variation. Okay, now this one is going to be a slightly different value, so 50,000. This is going to be a higher value, but we do need to change the naming of this, or else it won't work basically. Because if you notice there, it did change the value over here, so I'm just going to go back and change that. And that's why I've added variations on these as well. Although, to be fair, these can actually stay the same. All these are going to do is blend together, so these could actually stay the same in terms of its naming. So when you change the values of one set of parameters, it will change these values as well. So actually, these can stay the same. Okay, so that's that one. So now we're going to have to blend these two sets of normal maps and details together. So how we're going to do that is through a lerp, and then within that we're also going to do another scalar and call this normal initial int, and make sure the default value for that is 1. Then I'm going to put it into a 1 minus, which clamps these values between 0 and 1. And then I'm going to do a flatten normal, and then that lerp is going to go into there. Now, this is going to be lerped between a value called a distance mask, which is not going to be there because we haven't created it yet. So to create a distance mask, so I'm just going to put this and comment it as ripples. And then what I'm going to do is create a pixel depth, and then I'm going to plug this into a subtract, and then I'm going to create a scalar and call this distance water begins, copy it and call this distance water fades, and then that's going to go into there. That's going to go into a divide. I'm just going to change these values as well. So this is going to be 5,000. This is going to be set to 25,000. So this is assuming that it's a very big body of water, and I'll show you how we can change that to be more thingy. Then we're going to do saturate, and then this is going to be a, what's this going to be? A material expression. Okay. Named reroute declaration. I actually forgot what this is now. Okay, so it's called a reroute node. I had to look that up then. Reroute node. Oh, there we go. Named reroute declaration, and I'm going to call this distance mask. So when you zoom out, this will blend the different normal map layers together, so that you get a better thingy. But again, if it's interior, then it's not necessarily used, but you want to be able to use this on lots of different materials, water materials that you're making within the scene. So distance mask, and then what I could be able to do now is distance, type in the name, I can plug that into there, and I'm going to call this distance mask. Okay, I think that's everything we need to get this to work. Obviously then this would plug into the normal, and then we could maybe, I think I'll put this as grouping. No, none of these are grouped. So yeah, so I can save and apply, come off there, and if I could just drag this straight on, but we want to create a material instance of this, so right click, create material instance, water dark. I'm going to click on here, and you'll see here, but now this is going to be a little bit harder because you want to see the change. So I'm going to drag that onto my plane. Now at the moment it's quite light, it doesn't really match. So we're going to change some of these settings to work. So the first one is this. So we can change the colors of this. So this is the water dark, so this is the underside of it. So this would be quite dark. And then if we do this and this, so we can play around with this and see what we can come up with. Okay, right. Next thing is water scale. So if I play around with this, you can start to bring in the actual scale of the normal maps, so it's less big. Obviously with this as well, oh there we go, so I can start to play around with that, and I can start to get more water ripples effect. So I think 500 is a bit too much, so like 300, 250, yeah, that'll do for now. And then obviously we can have a play around with this and make it okay. And then we could play around with the speed of this. So like if you can really crank it up. Doesn't look right, but we can undo things by pressing this little arrow here, which is really cool, and we can just untick those when we're not happy. We can make it so the water doesn't absorb light too much. So if you want it like darker, that can be a case. With the scattering amount as well, we can make it so it's not receiving any light. When the light hits it, it just gets dark. You maybe want a little bit of that, basically, something a little bit like this. We can change the opacity so it's no longer opacity. Roughness as well. I think 0 is good for this, because it would be quite reflective. And this isn't really going to affect it. It's more with longer distances on that. So yeah, so this wouldn't be necessarily need to. It's if you had like bigger scenes that you could use these values to kind of make sure that it fades in and out quite nicely. But yeah, the main ones that you're going to use are obviously roughness if you don't want it to be shiny, but most of the time water is reflective. And I just tend to keep these as whole numbers as well, just because it's easier then to thingy. I mean, could change that to 1, but I prefer it to like 0.2. I think that works quite nicely. And yeah, so have a play around with that, see what you can come up with. And that's kind of how I go about making water inside of Unreal. And what I'll do also at the end of this video is there'll be a caption for Unreal technical documentation. And thank you for watching.